Hello again, my chess friends. Um, I wanted to do a game for you. Me as white and my opponent as black. His name is Today. I wanted to show you how never give up and don't resign because there's always an opportunity for you to win. And that's the name of this game, and I'll show you why I named it that. Okay, I go d4, e5, d takes e5, knight c6. He's attacking my pawn. So I go knight f3, defending it. My next move will be bishop to f4, and also defending that too. He goes queen to e5, e7. I go bishop f4. He goes bishop to b5. I mean queen to b5, b4, not b5, b4. Then I bring my queen up to d2. You're like, oh no, you're gonna lose a rook. Yeah, but you sometimes have to give up some material to actually get a good position and win. So he goes queen takes b2, and I go pawn e3. I'm getting ready to castle, and I'm not worried if he takes the rook or anything. I have a pretty good position. He goes bishop b4. I go c3, attacking his bishop and his knight. I mean, my knight protects the pawn. He goes queen takes a1. I go pawn takes. Then he goes queen takes b1. You're thinking, oh no, it's over. No, I had to give up a rook, but now I have a position. I can castle. I can come back and win. You're probably like, man, it's over because I'm down a rook. Don't ever give up. Keep the fight. Keep the fight. I go d1, queen d1. He takes. I go king takes d1. Yes, I'm probably gonna lose a pawn, but I'm not worried about that because later on in the game he gets kind of sloppy with his play, and I take advantage and win. So he goes knight takes b4. You're like, oh no. Then I go bishop to c4. I can play knight g5 and attack his rook that's crammed in by his knight, and it will be supported by my bishop. He goes knight e7. I go, like I said, g5 castles. I go e2. Now I'm getting my rook out there, and the party will begin. He goes b6. I go rook b1, attacking his knight. It's also I can make a lift all the way up to b5 and swing it over, or I can go to b2 and protect my pawn. Either way, it's really good. He goes a6. I go knight to see that I'm gonna go back a little bit. Do you see how he got a little sloppy there? I was able to take and then I took. Now I'm down just a rook and a pawn, and he has a weakness of his. If you notice the c7 pawn, I could push that pawn and then take it with the rook. And now I have a rook on the 7th rank, and it'd just be horrible for him. He goes c5. He has to block it in. That was a mistake also because it weakened his whole side on the queen side. I go h4. He goes d5. I go bishop g3. The reason I go bishop g3, I can't afford to lose any material because he's up a rook for a bishop, a rook and a pawn for a bishop. But later on, I win the game. You're like, wow, you're down so much material. But never give up. He goes bishop b4. I go a3. Now he has to retreat because if you notice, if he goes to a2, I can bring my rook to c2, and he's trapped, so he can't go there. He has to go back. He wasted a tempo. Now I have a tempo. I go e4. Now I'm getting ready to bring my knight to d6, and I can have a very nice knight, and he really can't do anything about it. He goes f to e8. I go, sorry, don't think so. He moves right there. I push up my pawn. Now I'm fortified for almost for life on that. He goes G6. I go knight E4. The reason I'm going E4 is he weakened his F6 pawn, square. I can now jump. I can bring a knight to F6, attacking his king, and also forking his pawn at D7. I'll win a pawn, and then I'll now only be down a rook, and then I can start gaining material back. You see how a little bit of sloppy moves can really turn the tide and bring you back into the battle. He goes A5. I go check. Don't think so. And I go down. Now, again, he can't go anywhere. I have a strong position. I can take the pawn if I want to, so he has to actually push it. I take it, see, and even if he brings his rook from A8 to D8, it still doesn't bother me because I can pop my rook right back into the F6 square, and it's still safe, and it's still dominating the position. He can never kick it out. There's no pawns because my knight will block in the F7 pawn from moving. He goes bishop to, not bishop, rook, not rook, sorry, knight B7. I'm really excited. This is like a really fun game, so I'm just really excited. I go knight to C7. He missed the fork. See, he should have brought his rook either the A rook to C8 or dropped back the rook that's at E6 to E7 to protect the fork, but he didn't. He made a mistake. I took advantage of it. He's doubling up. I take. The reason I took that rook is I don't want him to be able to take with his pawn, because I want his pawns to be set in stone like that so that they won't move, and I'll have a superior position. So he takes. Now we're calculating all the pieces. I am now back in position. A bishop for a knight. I was down a rook and a pawn. Now we're equal, and I'm going to take him out. I go bishop F2. He goes rook D8. I go pawn E4. I am now getting ready for the onslaught on the king side. If you notice, I have more pawns on the king side. I get a passed pawn. My bishop locks down his queen side pawns. If he goes B5, I can play bishop takes B5, but you're thinking, oh no, he could bring his rook. I'm not worried about that, because I can always drop it. I can always drop it right back into right back to D4, and I'm safe, it's protected, and I won a pawn. So he goes. He has to get some, but H5 isn't really a good move. I think that he probably should have either moved his rook or his knight somewhere, or somehow maybe position his king better. He weakened his position. Now it's time to take him out. I go bishop E4, A3. Because now if I push my F4 pawn to F5, I can now drop my bishop right into G5, attacking his rook, and also fortifying my position on the king side. He goes F6. I say thank you very much. Now I can get my undoubled pawns, and now I have a whole line. If you notice, I have 4 versus 2. This is a dominated position on the king side. He takes, then I go king F3. Now I'm getting ready. I can push my pawn. It's protected, and it frees up my bishop to start attacking on the queen side or the king side. He's in trouble. He goes D6. That was a big blunder, because now I know you see it. E5, that's a fork of the pawn for the knight. He's going to lose a knight, so he moves down. I takes. Now I'm up a bishop for a pawn. It's kind of a funny thing. I was down. Remember, I was down a rook and a pawn. Now I'm up a bishop, and he's down a pawn. So it's kind of like the tide has turned. I go E3, lock it down my position. He can't take anything. I can move my king anywhere I want. My bishop can always drop back to F2, protecting the G3 pawn and giving my rook free reign over the entire board. He goes rook D1. I drop it back, like I said, F2. He goes D5. I go rook E3. He goes back D2. I go check E5. He goes king F6. I go G5. I'm now, if he moves, I can take the pawn. A6. I go bishop E3, attacking his rook. He goes C4. I go bishop takes B6. The reason is no longer can his C pawn ever be protected. It's open for me to take it out. He goes C3. I go don't think so. He goes up. I go down F2. He does that again. I go and I allow him to take my pawn because look, I get rook. I go up. Rook takes. Yes. Did you see why I let the rook there? I could fork his king and the rook, and I win a rook. Now I'm up a full piece, and I'm gonna win the game. He goes king D6. I check. King E. King moves. F. King up. I take. Takes. Now it's a pawn race. A4. King A5. H4. A6. H3. A7. H2. A8. Sorry. Queen. Pawn A8. Queen. I queen before him, and bang! Doesn't that look a little similar to the searching for Bobby Fischer move? It is. It's a very similar. But I actually have a bishop, and I'm ahead material. He goes to king G3. He's really low on time. I go queen to G2. The reason is I'm sacrificing my queen for him to go to G2. Then I could walk my king over, and he can't get back to his pawn soon enough to protect it. I'll walk it down, and I'll win the game. In that situation, my opponent let his time run because he knew the position was over, and that's how I beat today. I am so glad I got to share it with you, and as always, God bless, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher.